Hello, my name is Anna and I love trying vintage recipes. So today I'm trying 3 casserole recipes from the 1960s. Today's recipes come to us from the Sunset Casserole book. This book was originally published in 1965, and we'll talk more about it a little bit later. These are not just any casseroles though. These are vegetable casseroles, so I wanted to come up with some ways to sort of like jazz up your veggies, make them a little bit more fun and interesting to eat. Of course, vegetables can be delicious when they're prepared very simply, you know, steamed with salt and butter and garlic, that kind of thing. But these particular dishes might be something good to take to a function, a potluck, a party, a holiday, that kind of thing. So I've chosen 3 different recipes from this book, 3 different vegetables. I hope you find at least one of them useful. For my first recipe, I've chosen green beans with Swiss cheese sauce. I thought this might be an interesting take on like a green bean casserole. I know some people are not fans of cream of mushroom soup, so I thought let's try this one and see how it goes. I've already started melting the butter. Here it is. All right, that butter is almost completely melted, and you may not be surprised to find that we're gonna add some flour to that. I think you know where this is headed. If you've ever made a white sauce, or you've watched one of my videos, watched me make a white sauce, that's where we're going. So you wanna make sure, just like blend that all together. I'm using my twist whisk as a flat whisk, just to get into those corners, make sure all the flour gets incorporated. Yeah, I'm cutting the recipe in half. That's why we're working with such tiny amounts. That was half a tablespoon of butter and half a tablespoon of flour. What comes next? We've got salt, sugar, and pepper. So 1/4 teaspoon of salt, 1/4 teaspoon of sugar, and just a pinch of pepper. I thought the sugar was kind of interesting here. Ooh, the lighting is changing. Sorry, I usually use natural light for my videos. So I'm kind of at the mercy of whatever it's doing, like outside. I just have, you know, the shades open. I'm gonna take the heat down just a hair. Now that that is blended together, I need to add my milk. This is 2 ounces of milk, 2 ounces of whole milk. I'm just gonna whisk that until it all comes together and gets a little bit thickened. Okay, that didn't take long at all. It's pretty dang thick actually. So now I need to add some sour cream. This is 1/4 cup. And then I also have just a bit of grated onion here. Admittedly, I did eyeball this because the full amount was like half a teaspoon. So I just grated some onion, just a little bit, and like threw it in here. It smells really good though, it really does. It says combine sauce with green beans and cheese and turn into a buttered casserole. So that's not exactly what I expected. I thought maybe we would turn this into a Swiss cheese sauce, like I would blend the cheese in here, but the way that it's written, it doesn't sound like that. Okay, so I'm gonna do it as written in the recipe because I wanna try it like that and see how it goes, which means I'm gonna turn the heat off for one thing. It says can of small whole green beans drained. I am using canned green beans. I'm not using small whole green beans. I'm using cut green beans because I'm just not that fancy. And I know some people don't really love canned green beans. You could probably use frozen, you know, frozen cooked green beans. Use what you like, but because I'm trying this for the first time, I'm trying to get it like a little bit close to the recipe, even if it's if I'm not using those whole green beans. Let me switch over to a spatula. There we go. Before I add the Swiss cheese, I think I'm gonna take this completely off the stove and move over to the countertop. Here we are, green beans and sauce so far. And I'm about to add the cheese. This is 3 ounces of finely shredded Swiss cheese. I weighed the block before I shredded it, and I know this is 3 ounces. So I'm gonna mix it in there. This could be interesting. I feel like this would also be pretty tasty with the addition of mushrooms if you like mushrooms, but we're gonna try it this way. I'm trying to get that all blended in without breaking up the green beans too much. Canned green beans are a little soft. Well, I feel okay about it. I have oiled one of my 1-quart casserole dishes. This one is Country Festival. I'm gonna be making this in my toaster oven, one of my favorite things to do. These fit perfectly in my toaster oven, and I am preheating the toaster oven to 400. How many times can I say toaster oven? Anyway, I'm preheating it to 400 degrees so that this can bake in there. Kind of spread this out a bit. I think another thing that might be good in this is like Parmesan cheese. I mean, it's Swiss cheese sauce, so we'll go with Swiss cheese, but I don't know, I'm just coming up with some ideas. And to be fair, Some shrinkflation is happening because the original recipe calls for 1 pound cans of green beans, and I used a 14.5 ounce can, I think, 1 second. 14.5 ounces, because that is how they come now. Green beans aren't usually in 1 pound cans anymore. So yes, I could have added more green beans to this if I really wanted to. I didn't want to open a second can, so we'll just have an extra cheesy casserole. I'm not mad about it. Almost there, but we have a buttery crumb topping to go on the top to finish things off. I mean, we don't have it yet. I'm gonna make it. So I have some cornflake crumbs and not an equal amount. I don't know why I said that. Just disregard that. I have half a tablespoon of melted butter. Equal amounts of crumbs and butter. I mean, sure, if you want to try it. But anyway, you're gonna mix the melted butter with cornflake crumbs. This would also be a good place to put those French fried onions if you're going for a more traditional kind of green bean casserole. But I think these cornflake crumbs are gonna be amazing. So I'm gonna just evenly sprinkle those. Crumb toppings on casseroles, they make things special and extra delicious. I'm kind of covered in butter and crumbs, so we're gonna hold it in this hand. I'm gonna bake this at 400 degrees for 20 minutes. 1 sec, I forgot already. 20 minutes, yes, I was right. Green beans with Swiss cheese sauce. That's what it is, it's right here. Smells incredible. It looks pretty dang good. I'm ready to give it a try. We'll have a little bite here. You know, it's probably a little more saucy than the original, just because, you know, my can of green beans is slightly smaller. Okay, I can see that the cheese is kind of stretchy in there. Since it's not incorporated into the sauce, it's kind of like part of the green bean part of things. I let it sit for a few minutes. It was bubbling when it came out of the toaster oven. So hopefully it's not too hot to eat. Oh, that's nice, okay. Yeah, the Swiss cheese is really delicious in there. I think I would like to try it by making the sauce with the Swiss cheese kind of melted into it, just because I'm curious. I think it could change the texture a little bit, just because like the Swiss cheese is kind of melted into pieces, which is not bad. I love a melty cheesy moment, but I just kind of want to see how it would be with more of a Swiss cheese sauce. But really, I think the flavors are good. I think this could make sort of an interesting alternative to your traditional green bean casserole. Well, we have another casserole that starts on the stovetop before being baked in the oven, and it's this Spinach Bake right here. And maybe you can hear something sizzling away. So I have 1.5 slices of bacon that I've cut into very small pieces, and I just need to cook those until they are lightly browned. My bacon is all nice and browned. I went ahead and just removed it to some paper towels to drain. And I have a little bit of the bacon fat left. I took some of it off, but I need to cook some chopped onions, just a small amount. It was like small chopped onion. This is like half of a small onion that I've chopped. So I just need to cook this. It says cook until limp. Got lots of ingredients all around me. I have my onion over here just kind of cooling a little bit. And then I have 10 ounces of frozen chopped spinach in this bowl. I did thaw this a little bit. Mostly I was kind of like, am I gonna leave it frozen? Am I gonna thaw it? What am I gonna do? It says that you can use either uncooked, like fresh chopped spinach, or you can use frozen spinach. So I was thinking if you use one or the other, you know, my thought went to like, I'm gonna thaw this, I'm gonna squeeze a little bit of the moisture out, not all of it, I'm not gonna completely dry it out. But that's why I chose to just kind of thaw it a little bit. I'm kind of wondering like what the difference would be if I used fresh, but I had frozen on hand and that's what I went with. So I need to combine this spinach with some cheese. I have a couple ounces of sharp cheddar cheese that I've shredded very fine. It just says cheddar cheese, but this is like, I had sharp, so that's what I used. So I'm gonna mix that together a bit. You can maybe understand why I wanted to let the cooked onion and bacon fat cool a little bit. This also does have kind of a longer bake time. It's a pretty small casserole. You're supposed to put it in like a really shallow dish and let it bake for 40 minutes. So it's pretty long. I'm now going to add my cooked onion and bacon fat. We're gonna get it in there. Combine that. The bacon will come into play soon. I promise. I wouldn't fry the bacon and then not use it, right? Yeah, I think that was a good idea, just to sort of get things at a similar temperature. I didn't want the cheese to get like melty and weird. I'm gonna set this aside for just a moment. And I have an egg here, and I need to beat this egg with some salt and pepper before I combine it with the spinach mixture. So 1 egg, this is a 1/4 teaspoon of salt and just a pinch of black pepper. I'm gonna mix that up. In some ways, this recipe seems a little minimal. In other ways, it seems just right. I don't know. I've had some other spinach bake kind of recipes that have like cottage cheese in them, or they have more of a milk and egg mixture, and this is just egg. And let's bring this back in and combine the egg, salt, and pepper with the spinach. Here we go. Make sure we get all the egg in there, as much as possible anyway. So I've oiled another one of my 1-quart casserole dishes. This one I believe is called Floral Bouquet. I have a hard time remembering the name of this one sometimes. Turn into shallow greased 1-quart baking dish. I can do that. Pretty shallow. I could have gone even smaller with the casserole dish on this one. I'm gonna spread this out so it's nice and flat. I kind of wonder if this is gonna be a little bit like that spinach souffle, like I think from Stouffer's. I don't know if I've ever tried it, but I know a lot of people like it, and I'm not sure if it's still available in the freezer section. Sprinkle with breadcrumbs and bacon pieces. So I have 1.5 tablespoons of breadcrumbs. Seems like a heck of a lot of breadcrumbs. You know, I want to use fewer breadcrumbs, I think. There's no butter to go with the breadcrumbs, maybe just because of the fat and the bacon. So let's just use slightly less breadcrumbs. We're in business. That's what it looks like pre-oven. So I have to bake this for 40 minutes. It says to bake it in a moderate oven. Moderate is usually around 350 degrees. It seems like it kind of formed more like of a solid thing that is possibly able to be cut into squares. We'll find out. We're gonna try it. It'd be just so much fun to serve this in squares. Like a cake. No, maybe not like a cake. Can we get this out in one piece? Yeah, pretty close, pretty close. I did let this go for the full 40 minutes in my toaster oven. Let's get you a cross section. Can I? Yeah, that might be little. There we go. I was like, that might be hard with this plate, but you can kind of see. Let's get a fork. That's a spoon. That is a spoon. The crumbs kind of formed a top crust. Really holding things together. Okay. Flavor-wise, the bacon is really coming in here, making it taste extra good. Bacon tastes good. Newsflash. While this was baking, I did look up like what's in the Stouffer's spinach souffle, and it does have eggs and milk in it. This could be similar, maybe? I don't know. It tastes really good. The cheese and the bacon make it taste extra good, of course. Why am I still holding this with an oven glove? This isn't hot. So I really like this a lot. I really like this. The bacon is a very powerful flavor. So you gotta like bacon to like this dish. Okay, one final recipe is going to be scalloped fresh corn. And after, I chose this, I planned this video, and I just looked at it again as I was prepping ingredients, and I'm like, is this too simple? I don't know. Frankly, fresh corn at this time of year doesn't need a lot anyway. Like, even this might be too much for fresh corn. It's pretty special. But anyway, we're gonna give it a try. We're just gonna see, maybe preparing it still fairly simply with a few extra ingredients could make it even more special somehow. Cutting the recipe in half, you should be used to that by now probably. Cut a lot of recipes in half. So in this bowl, I have 1.5 cups of fresh corn that I've cut off the cob. I actually have just like slightly more. This was 3 sort of medium ears of corn. And I feel like everybody has a different method for cutting corn off the cob. This is just how I do it. I use a bundt pan, and you just kind of like balance the corn cob in the center, and then, run a knife down the sides and get off as many kernels as you can. I think my grandma did it this way. I want to say she used her angel food cake pan to do this, and that's just like why I do it this way. Do what you want, just get them off there. I know they make like devices, gadgets to cut corn off the cob. I've not tried those, you know. A knife seems to work pretty well for me. It says combine corn with olives. So I have a 1/4 cup of sliced black olives, cheese. It's funny because I looked at these two things and I'm like, which is cheese? Because they look very similar. This is the cheese. This is diced mozzarella cheese. I have some salt, I have some pepper. That's what we got. Okay. So I'm gonna bring in a casserole dish. Another 1 quart. This one is blue corn flour. And I'm gonna bake this in my toaster oven. I'm doing that for all of these. Today is an especially hot day, so I am like, yes, toaster oven. It is. Don't want to turn on that big oven if I don't have to. Pour this into my casserole dish. It didn't say to grease the dish. The other recipes did say, you know, grease your casserole dish. Spread it out. Oh, I should have like saved some olives to decorate the top. Dot with butter. So I cut my butter into very small pieces. Corn, butter, and salt. I mean, pretty good. Those 3 things together. So hopefully the addition of a couple more things is gonna make it taste even better, if not just good. I'd settled for just good. Let's see, it's kind of hard to tell where I've already been with this butter. Okay, that's it. That is it. So now I need to bake this for 25 minutes at 350 degrees. This is a very simple dish. Like simple to the point of like, I don't know if it needs the cheese and the olives. I was thinking about it and I'm like, I think I remember my grandma making corn where she'd cut it off the cob, put it in a baking dish and then just like dot it with butter and salt and pepper and not put cheese and all. I've never had it with cheese and olives like this. I don't know. It could be really good. Fresh corn at this time of year is kind of special on its own. I don't know. We'll do it. We'll try it. Maybe I'll like have other thoughts after I take a bite. I gotta get an olive. I got to. I'm gonna take another bite. This is really tasty, but it's because it's corn, salt, pepper, and butter. Okay, I do kind of like the olives in there because they lend a nice salty quality, you know, on top of the salt, like a briny quality. I think it's the cheese that's throwing me. It does not need the cheese. I'm gonna eat this. Like this is gonna get eaten. I'm not wasting fresh corn. The olives are fine. Butter, salt, and pepper, of course, essential. Don't think it needs the cheese though. The Sunset Casserole book was originally published in 1965. Sunset is a magazine that has been around for quite some time, actually. It began in 1898, and it was originally a promotional magazine for the Southern Pacific Railroad. I found a really great article about Sunset Magazine. I'll go ahead and link that so you can learn more about the publication itself if you would like. It's been through a lot of different owners, and it's kind of evolved over time. So it is an interesting magazine to learn about, but we're here to talk about this cookbook. I have a few Sunset cookbooks in my cookbook collection. I don't think I've ever covered one here on the channel, so this is a first. So let's look at the front. This is going to be one of the only color photographs, the other one being here. This is what I assume is the test kitchen back in the 60s. The photographs that are inside the book are black and white. So we have black and white photographs of the food, and then there are cute little sort of like kitchen-y themed illustrations that are orange and black and white. And those just, they kind of are scattered throughout the margins. I love it when cookbooks do that. You know, the Good Housekeeping little illustrations in the margins, even some of the Betty Crockers, the Better Homes and Gardens, they all kind of did that. This book is all about casseroles. I chose a specific category of casserole because that is how this book is broken up. So they have meat casseroles, poultry casseroles, vegetable casseroles, seafood casseroles, and then it's macaroni, let me see, rice, macaroni, and noodles. It seems like when you say the word casserole, like a main dish maybe comes to mind first. I wanted to focus on the side dishes. We give main dishes a lot of attention sometimes, and then, you know, the side dishes are an afterthought. Maybe you cook some frozen veggies or you make a salad. I wanted to make vegetable casseroles the star of this video. Here's a photo of a traditional green bean casserole with those French fried onions on top. I feel like so many of us are familiar with that image. Usually a green bean casserole is made with like a cream of mushroom soup. This one is not. This one is not. There's a package of cream of leek dry soup mix in there. I don't even know if you can get that anymore. Let's look at some more photos. Let's look at some bigger photos. So this is the introduction to the meat casseroles chapter. It looks like we're making maybe some kind of beef stew. And then we have the introduction to the poultry casseroles chapter. It seems like the biggest photos are going to be like the introductory pages. Oh yes, we have seafood casseroles. It's some kind of shrimp. What is that? That is wild rice and shrimp casserole. It is an elegant cook-ahead casserole for a buffet. Ooh, this one is curry creamed asparagus casserole. This is the introductory page to the rice, macaroni, and noodles. And then I just saw there's actually a couple of chapters I didn't mention. The eggs and cheese section. So we have that. That looks good. I see mushrooms. I love mushrooms. And then we have casseroles for a crowd. So if you're going to feed a lot of people, this book has some casseroles for you. Turkey noodle casserole, hominy chili casserole, Italian style macaroni casserole, hot crab souffle. There's a lot in here and a lot of variety too. Sometimes, you know, I have other casserole cookbooks and you kind of get into some of the same things over and over. There's some things in here that I think are very fun and interesting and maybe a little different from the casseroles that I typically see from this time period. We also have some menus kind of sprinkled throughout. Here's one for a seafood supper party. And that consists of marinated broccoli, crisp sesame rounds, and spiced cherry compote. And then the main dish is going to be salmon and oysters en casserole. Elegant. How elegant. Oh my gosh, a casserole picnic? Okay, I love picnics. I don't know, a casserole picnic sounds like might be messy. Cold spare ribs, lima bean and pear casserole. I didn't expect that. I did not read this menu ahead of time. Celery sticks, another clinker for me, and gingerbread with sugar glaze. That sounds good, but wow, a lima bean and pear casserole. What's in there? We got butter, we have dried lima beans, and pears and brown sugar. Actually, I kind of understand what they're doing. I mentioned in a previous video, I've made baked beans from dried beans, and the recipe that I used actually included some like apples and dates or figs or something. So I think that's kind of what they're doing here. The pears kind of give it that sweet and savory thing, maybe. Maybe I'm just making excuses for this casserole, I'm not sure. So this book offers, according to the back cover, 196 enticing casserole recipes. That is a lot of recipes for this pretty slim volume, actually. But anyway, let's talk about the recipes I made today. So I started with green beans with Swiss cheese sauce. And I thought that this would be a good alternative to your traditional green bean casserole. I know it's much beloved. There are some ingredients in there that maybe sometimes people don't really love, or maybe they've just eaten it so much that they're just not into it anymore. This one was a little different because you started with your own white sauce, and then you add some sour cream to that, and the recipe includes shredded Swiss cheese as an ingredient. I thought the taste on this was really good. The flavor of the Swiss cheese made things really special to me. I think if I try this again, I would like to melt the cheese into the white sauce, but as is, it did end up being really tasty. It reheated well too. So I had some of this yesterday, just warmed it up in the microwave, and it tasted really, really good. I would like to see mushrooms added to this because I do actually like mushrooms in my green bean casserole. You know, the cornflake crumbs were really good, but if you wanted, you could go and sort of add those French fried onions to the top if you want some more of that flavor. Yeah, it was kind of a different take on your traditional like cream of mushroom green bean casserole. I really enjoyed this one. The second recipe I tried was Spinach Bake. And I have made a few other spinach bakes before that were kind of similar to this, but not quite. This was another one that reheated really well, by the way. I had leftovers from these and I just kind of like had them for lunch here and there. I really liked this one the next day. The other spinach bakes that I have made have been a lot more like eggy. You know, usually there's like a couple of eggs at least and then some milk, and it binds the spinach together and everything, but the result, while tasty, I do like them, it's got more fluffy egg to it. This is like spinach. This is mostly spinach. It is bound together with like 1 egg and some cheese. So you get the flavor of the cheese and the bacon, but the texture is really nice. The texture is like mostly spinach. I also kind of like that this cut into squares really easily. So you could make this and have like really easy individual portions if you wanted to. The bacon was a pretty strong flavor. It did complement things well. I do like, you know, like a bacon and spinach salad. I used 1.5 slices of bacon because I cut the recipe in half. And then you also use the bacon fat to cook the onion. So just be aware, it is a very like bacon heavy flavor, but it is tasty with the spinach and the cheese. My final recipe was scalloped fresh corn. Okay, scalloped. When I think of something as scalloped, I'm like scalloped potatoes, or even my grandma used to make scalloped corn, and it was not like this. It was more of a like creamed corn bake. This was just like fresh corn, butter, salt, pepper, cheese, olives. The fresh corn is the star of the show. It just absolutely is, because when you have fresh corn, especially in the summer, it's usually pretty tasty. The butter, the salt, and the pepper made a lot of sense to me. I did end up really liking the black olives just because they kind of like support that salty, briny flavor. It's the cheese here. The cheese is really like not necessary. It almost disrupts the texture of the corn too. You're probably not ever gonna hear me say like the cheese was not necessary. I love cheese, but it just didn't make a lot of sense to me here. And I don't really feel like this is a scalloped corn recipe, not in the way that I know it. Just take your fresh corn and prepare it very simply. If you want to include the black olives, I say give it a try. I think it would be good to add some like jalapenos to this too. But the cheese, it was just kind of a like weird note to me. It was like these weird little stretchy pieces in between my bites of delicious fresh corn. I even looked, I was like, did I forget ingredients? This recipe seems a little unusual to me. Even though I thought it was unusual, I wanted to try it because I was like, maybe it makes something like really magical that I'm unaware of. You know, the corn does give off some of its liquid when you bake it, and I was like, maybe that just kind of like brings everything together and makes it into something unexpected. But no, it is kind of what I expected. That's just my opinion. You can make this and let me know what you think, but to me, I would probably prepare this without the cheese. Do you have any sunset cookbooks in your collection, and do you have a favorite? I'd love to hear about that, so please leave me a comment. I'd like to say a special thank you to my Patreon supporters. If you'd like to join us over there, I'll have a link in the description so that you can do that. I hope you liked this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up, share it with a friend, and subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. I post videos about food, vintage cookbooks, and retro recipes every week. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye.